In today's video, I'll be swatching inks from Kitty Inkpot and Fanyantan. You've seen me swatch using this other method of mine before where I match inks to paintings, but in today's video it will be a simple cataloging of inks. You know me though, I always find a way to turn things into a creative exercise, so I'll be practicing Gothic capital letters today as well. And the paper I'm using today is from Me Plus. It's the A5 grid insert and it is 120 GSM. So it's thicker than Tomoe River paper, but it's coated so fountain penning performs well on it. And as for the tools I'll be using in this video, so the first tool is the Sailor Hocoro Dip Pen here, and this is the 2mm stub variant. And the next pen I'm using is the Pilot Iro-Utsushi Dip Pen with a fine nib. And then lastly, I'm not using a pen at all, so this is a glass drink stir. I got this on Amazon and it's meant to stir cocktail drinks. I got the idea to use this tool from YouTuber Julia here. She makes amazing ink swatch videos and I love all of the unconventional tools that she uses in her videos. So this is one that I tried and I actually really love it. Okay, now let's talk about the inks I'll be using in this video. I'll put the name of each ink on the screen so you can see it, and I'm also writing it down in my swatches too so you can see it there. So all of the inks in today's video are from Chinese ink studios. So both Fanyantan and Kitty Inkpot are both based in China. These inks are a little hard to get in the US because not a lot of stores stock them yet, and you have to import them, and then also tariffs. The good news is that I'm seeing more sellers offer the Kitty Inkpot inks in the US. There's smaller sellers like Noetic Paper, which is where I got mine from. They are stocking Kitty Inkpot now, and a few other stores, I believe, very small ones. But for Fanyantan, I haven't really seen them in stores yet, and so I had to get them from AliExpress and get them imported. Even with import fees, it was actually pretty reasonable, at least for me. It's no more expensive than buying other $20 bottles. The only negative is that it takes a while to ship, like a few weeks. So you just have to be patient when you order these. And you're probably wondering, well, why buy them in the first place then? The reason they're worth importing for me is that both of these companies are making really cool inks. Lots of chroma shading inks where the ink changes color to multiple colors, just color combinations that I really don't see other brands doing. So not only are they making cool inks, but they also perform well. I've put quite a few of these inks in pens already, and they write beautifully. I will say though that the Kitty Inkpot inks are a bit drier, and they are drier than the Fanyantan ones. I feel like the Fanyantan inks are a little bit more wet and flowy. And also one thing I noticed overall about Kitty Inkpot inks is that the colors tend to be very light pastel, so really you should be using these with thicker nibs or, big swatches. If you use one of these lighter inks in a pen with an extra fine nib, it won't be very visible. But they do offer some darker colors, like this Lost Rose one. The value is a little bit darker than some of these other ones. I love both of the brands, but if you made me choose between one or the other, I would probably pick Fanyantan inks. I just generally prefer more wet inks, especially since I write with extra fine nibs a lot and I generally write tiny in my daily writing. Those wet inks make the experience of writing more enjoyable with that nib size. I do still really enjoy the Kitty Inkpot inks, especially with Gothic lettering. The shading on it just looks so beautiful. And so I did end up ordering another, I want to say it was like 7 or 8 more Kitty Pot inks, so I have those on the way. I also made an obnoxiously large ink order with Atlas Stationers. I don't even want to tell you the number of inks I got. It is insane, but I wanted to try a bunch of other brands that I hadn't tried before, or rather I had small samples of, and I want to buy a full bottle and really give a try to these brands like Anderillium. This year I've been getting really into inks. I wasn't really into inks as much last year. I had a small collection, but not nearly collecting the amount that I do now. And the reason is because I feel like inks make the pen. So I have a large collection of fountain pens, but really it's the ink that you pair it with that really makes the pen, the experience. I'm finding that inks have personalities as well as the pens, and so it's about combining the two together with these personalities that suit each other in a way. That's almost the fun part for me now, matching the ink to the pen, and not just matching the color of the ink with the color of the pen, but matching the flow of the two, so the ink can affect how your pen flows, how it writes. I'm discovering that certain ink brands don't really play well with certain pen brands, things like that. So now I'm deep into my ink journey this year. And a perk to getting into ink collecting is that ink is a lot cheaper than buying, expensive fountain pens. So you can collect a lot more inks than you can pens. Now, whenever I'm craving that dopamine hit, I'm craving something new, I get a new ink or I put a different ink in a pen. So instead of buying a new pen all the time, I'm putting a new ink in a pen that I already have. I feel like I'm yapping nonstop about ink, so hopefully you're enjoying this so far. But back to the ink swatching. The reason that I'm practicing capital Gothic letters is that I'm really not well practiced in them at all. Whenever I write my Gothic lettering, I do all lowercase, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, and even some scribes back in the day did the same thing. They did all lowercase. I'm not sure why, but you can find manuscripts of all lowercase and only maybe a drop cap is capital letter. But that is the reason why I want to learn the capital letters, is because I'd love to do more drop caps and actually hand drawing them instead of doing stickers, so you know the larger letter at the beginning of a paragraph, that's a drop cap. So I wanted to practice them a bit more here, and I feel like it also represents the ink very well. Whenever you do Gothic lettering, you can see the shading of the ink very well. Plus, it's helpful for me to see what these Gothic letters will look like in these specific inks. And you might be wondering how I'm choosing these letters that I'm doing right here. I'm just doing it based on the name of the ink. So whatever the ink starts with, that's the letter I'm using, and some of them are duplicates. Looking back, I could have just gone down the alphabet, but I don't know, that didn't make sense to me at the time I was doing this. I just thought, yeah, let's do it whatever the ink begins with. I don't know, I just had my headphones on, I was vibing, I was having a good time. Whenever I want a chill evening, I'll just do some ink swatching, and it's beneficial because I get to catalog my inks, and also it's just very meditative and enjoyable. Alright, now the first sheet is done. So these are all of my Kitty Inkpot inks that I have so far. I do have more on the way, like I said, but those are all of the ones I have for now. And before I move on to the next set of inks, I want to talk about the ring binder that I'm using here. So this binder is new, and Me Plus kindly sent me this ring binder. So this is the Me Plus Slim Pad in the size A5. This is real Italian butter leather, and the color is light brown. The leather is so smooth and beautiful and soft. And this leather ring binder is fully customizable. You can change the color of that spine. I picked gold for mine, but you can pick silver. You can also change the color of the rings. Again, I picked gold, but you can pick silver. You can change the color of the leather, and you can even change the ring size. So I got the smallest size, but you can get bigger rings if you do prefer bigger rings. And the rings are high quality Krauss rings. And one of my favorite features is that it's completely lay flat, so I'm able to do my ink swatching in this binder. It's flat enough to where I can evenly do my swatching. I don't have to take out my paper and then put it back in. I'm not much of a rings person, but I think rings make perfect sense for ink cataloging in particular. You definitely want to be able to rearrange your inks when you get new inks. There's always more to be added, so rearranging your pages makes the most sense with a ring binder. Anyway, thank you so much, Me Plus, for sending me this beautiful leather binder. And now back to the inks. So I am getting into my Fanyantan inks now. As I mentioned before, I got these on AliExpress, and the seller that I bought these through is Universal Stationery Store. So not all of the stores on AliExpress will ship to the US, but Universal Stationery Store did. I honestly don't know much about AliExpress. This is the second order I've placed through this app, and the first one I bought a Sailor Pro Gear Slim mini pen. I found a great price on it, and I couldn't really find this pen many places besides on eBay, but I did find it here and I bought a pen. But this is the second order, and I have had a great experience so far, although the app is a little insane with all of the pop-ups and the coupons, and there's all kinds of gamified things in the app, which I just don't pay any attention to any of that. But if you don't mind sifting through that, you can find some good deals. I got all of these inks from that same seller, and I didn't even have a plan for what inks I wanted when I was browsing. I literally just knew that I wanted to get Fanyantan inks, and I searched that brand name, and then I found the seller, and I was just looking at all that the seller has to offer, and I was picking ink colors based on vibes. Whatever preview pictures they had, I just based my decision on that. I'm usually someone who researches inks extensively before I buy them. Like, I'll look at Mountain of Ink and all of the websites that show ink swatches. But since not a lot of people have swatches of these inks, I was going in blind and I was picking colors based on ones that called to me. Which, looking back, is funny because I ended up picking a pretty cohesive fall color palette. I guess I already have fall on my mind. I don't know, something about earthy colors, jewel tone colors, it just calls to me, and I tend to collect pens and inks in these colors. And this year specifically, for some reason, I have gravitated towards the color combination green and red, which you kind of assume would be very Christmassy, but I think there's ways to combine those two colors in so many beautiful variations, and I've been exploring that a lot in my Hobonichi journal. At the beginning of the year, when I was sticker bombing the cover of the Hobonichi, I chose for some reason red and green stickers, not knowing that that would actually be the color palette that would kind of define my year for me. I think my subconscious knew that. Something about red and green together is really doing it for me this year. So naturally, I've also been buying a lot of red and green inks. On another note, I love the way that the ink is drying on this paper. It's the first time I used this paper for ink swatching, so I was hoping that it would perform well, and it did indeed. I love the way that the ink dries down, and I love how bright and white the paper is, but mostly I love how smooth it is, and it almost feels like Tomoe river paper, but thicker. So if you've ever wanted paper with all of the benefits of Tomoe river paper but just thicker, then this is definitely an option to look into. Towards the end of this video, I'll show you the back sides of these papers so you can see just how well the inks performed on this paper. You can definitely use the back side of this paper. You know how some inks bleed through completely so it makes the back side unusable? Yeah, that's not the case with this one. Make Plus sent me these inserts to try, as well as a few other inserts including some thinner paper, but I gravitated to this one and I do really enjoy it, so I'll be personally buying these myself. You might have noticed I forgot to put the ink brand name on the You Are the Champion of Coffee ink. The name was so long that I think I just forgot to put the brand name, so I do end up catching that later on in the video, and I do add the brand name. Speaking of names, I really enjoy that both of these brands use whimsical names for their inks. I know it's not a description of the actual color. I mean, I guess some of them could be, but they're more fun and playful and evoke a sense of imagination and curiosity, and I really love that. I love that playfulness with inks. I do want to be more playful with fountain pen inks, and I want to draw more actually with fountain pen inks. My only hesitation is that most of the inks aren't waterproof, though I do know there are waterproof inks and I have some, but all of these fun colors, they aren't waterproof. So you get a little bit of water, like say you're using watercolor, then there goes all of your line art. There's a really talented artist named Kenny Leoncito, and he does amazing, beautiful drawings with fountain pen inks. And he's so skilled at what he does that it's very inspiring to see, and it's inspiring me to do that more often. Okay, we are on the last page now, and all of these last few inks are brown inks. My collection of brown fountain pens has grown this year, meanwhile my collection of brown inks has not, so I was putting the same brown inks in every pen, and I wanted some variation, so that's why I decided to pick up a few different browns here. I do gravitate to more warm colored browns, so that's what you'll be seeing here are warmer ones. I do have a couple cool toned browns, or more cool toned than these ones, but I find that I don't really reach for them. I don't fill my pens with them very often, and if I do have it inked in a pen, I tend to switch it pretty soon after putting it in. Although this brown that I'm swatching right now, this one is probably the coolest tone out of the bunch. It has a purple tint to it. So a slight cool tone to it, but overall still pretty warm. And some browns from other brands that I really love are Café des Îles from Jacques Rabanne and also Laireta from Jacques Rabanne. And I really love Café Crema from Robert Oster as well. Sorry if I butchered those names. French is not my language. I can only speak English and some Spanish. One thing about Jacques Rabanne inks though is I do find them to be a bit dry. Some of them are way too dry, but I do think that Café des Îles and Laireta are on the more wet side. Robert Oster inks also tend to be hit or miss in terms of dryness or wetness. I've had really wet ones and really dry ones. And I keep saying wet and dry, and you may be wondering, well, what does that even mean? Isn't all ink wet? but they're words to describe the flow of the ink. It's hard to explain unless you feel it yourself. So a dry ink will almost resist coming out of the pen. It comes out very slowly, like you're pulling teeth to get it to come out. Dry inks do dry faster on the page though, so you don't have to wait long before that ink dries and less chances of smearing. So if you rest your hand on the page or if you're just very impatient, you might want more dry inks. Wet inks though, they just want to come out of the pen, it just gushes out. It's really fun to write with wet inks, your pen just glides across the page, but it does take a while for the inks to dry. The wet versus dry can also affect how the ink shades, how it looks. Wet inks tend to have more interesting effects versus dry inks are like more uniform in the shading. There's no light and dark parts. So if you were ever curious about wet versus dry inks, that's what people mean. So here is where I'm adding the brand names that I forgot earlier. And my ink swatches are done. Here are the final swatches. And for the backside reveal, I'll show you the other page first. This one has very minimal bleeding. There's only a couple dots on the back where it bled through towards the bottom. So it's just a tiny couple dots of bleed through, and the page didn't warp a crazy amount like Tomoe River paper does. And this other page here, it had a couple more dots of bleed through, and I pointed out right here, it just bled through a tiny amount. But the backside is still very usable, so likely in the future when I add more inks, I will use the backsides of these to catalog. And here is a close-up of all of those swatches, and you can see the cool effects that these inks have, especially those Kitty Inkpots, the super cool chroma shading. And that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate you being here.